The Bardo Thodol also contains this essential wisdom about how our thoughts shape our reality. Our past thinking has determined our present status, and our present thinking will determine our future status, for man is what man thinks. Listen, O nobly born, that which is called death has now arrived. You are departing from this world, but you are not the only one. Death comes to all. Do not cling to this life in weakness. Remember the pure, clear light, the pure, empty state of mind. What if I told you that an ancient text claims to map out exactly what happens after you die? A mysterious manuscript so powerful that monks kept it hidden for centuries, believing most people weren't ready for its revelations? Stop and think about this for a moment. Are you prepared for what happens when your heart beats for the final time? When the doctors pronounce you dead, but your consciousness continues its journey? Today we're going beyond mainstream understanding to explore humanity's most guarded knowledge about death, the Tibetan Book of the Dead. This isn't just another spiritual text. It's a detailed roadmap to the afterlife that could transform not just how you die, but how you're living right now. Are you ready to confront what might be waiting for you on the other side? The text we're diving into today is known in the West as the Tibetan Book of the Dead, though its original name, the Bardo Thodol, reveals its true purpose. Bardo refers to an intermediate state or transition, while Thodol means liberation through hearing. But let me ask you this. What if this book wasn't written just for those who have died, but for you right now? What if understanding death's journey could completely transform how you experience being alive? Unlike modern medical texts that clinically describe physical death, this ancient manuscript illuminates what happens to your consciousness itself, the awareness that you experience as you, as it journeys beyond the body. Have you ever wondered why people across cultures report strikingly similar near-death experiences? Could this ancient wisdom have been describing a universal human experience all along? The origins of this remarkable text are shrouded in mystery and legend. In the Tibetan tradition, it is attributed to Padmasambhava, the 8th century sage who brought Buddhism to Tibet. But Padmasambhava exists at the crossroads of history and myth, a revered master whose life story contains both documented events and miraculous accounts. Think about this. What kind of wisdom would be so powerful that its creator felt compelled to hide it, believing future generations would need it more than his contemporaries? According to tradition, Padmasambhava recognized that future generations would need this wisdom, but might not be ready to receive it in his time. So he did something extraordinary. He created terma, or hidden treasures of wisdom, concealing this text and others in caves, temples, and even within the minds of future disciples who would discover these teachings when humanity was prepared. Can you imagine the moment when monks first uncovered these texts, written in a secret symbolic language, trembling with both awe and fear at what they contained? Padmasambhava wasn't just a religious figure. He was a master psychologist who understood the human mind with extraordinary depth. He recognized that consciousness doesn't just vanish at death, but undergoes a transformation that can lead either to liberation or to continued cycles of existence. What makes this text particularly compelling is how its authority doesn't rest solely on religious tradition. Its descriptions align with accounts from diverse cultural backgrounds, from near-death experiences documented by modern researchers to visionary journeys described by mystics across centuries and continents. I have to ask, when accounts from people who have briefly died match descriptions from an ancient text written over 1,000 years ago, don't you think that deserves our attention? The nature of death and consciousness. The first profound teaching from the Bardo Thodol challenges our fundamental understanding of death itself. In the Western world, we've been conditioned to see death as an ending, the final period at the end of life's sentence. But this ancient text presents a radically different perspective. Death as a transition, not a termination. According to the Bardo Thodol, consciousness doesn't extinguish when the body dies. It transforms. The text describes death not as a plunge into oblivion, but as an unveiling, where layers of ordinary perception fall away, revealing more fundamental aspects of mind and reality. Imagine consciousness as an ocean, and your individual awareness as a wave. When a wave subsides, it doesn't cease to exist. It returns to the ocean. Similarly, consciousness doesn't end at death, but shifts into different states of being. This perspective aligns with what quantum physicists tell us about the nature of matter and energy, that they cannot be created or destroyed, only transformed. The first law of thermodynamics seems to whisper the same truth as this ancient text. Nothing truly ends. It only changes form. The Bardo Thodol suggests that at the moment of death, we encounter what it calls the fundamental clear light of reality. This isn't described as a distant heaven or abstract concept, but as the most intimate experience possible, the pure nature of your own mind, unveiled and luminous. Ask yourself honestly, how would your life change if you knew with certainty that death was not an end but a doorway? Would you still fear it? Would you make different choices about how you're living right now? When you feel that instinctive fear of death arising, try this perspective shift. Rather than seeing death as losing everything you have, experiment with viewing it as releasing what was always temporary to discover what is eternal within you. This isn't spiritual bypassing, it's practicing the ultimate act of letting go while fully alive. Notice how this perspective immediately changes your relationship with daily anxieties. What seemed overwhelming moments ago often transforms into manageable experience when viewed through this wider lens of awareness. The Bardos were stages of transition. The journey after death unfolds through distinct phases called Bardos, or intermediate states. The Bardo Thodol maps these transitions with remarkable precision, offering insights into each stage of the soul's journey. First comes the Chikai Bardo, the moment of death itself, where consciousness experiences what the text calls the fundamental clear light of reality. This is described as a luminous awareness, boundless and pristine. Those who have practiced meditation or developed spiritual awareness might recognize this light and merge with it, achieving immediate liberation. Have you ever experienced moments of profound clarity or peace where time seemed to stand still? Could these be glimpses of what awaits in the first Bardo? Here's a simple yet profound meditation practice from the Tibetan tradition that connects you with this experience. For just 3 minutes daily, visualize a clear, radiant light at the center of your chest. As you breathe in, imagine this light becoming brighter. As you exhale, see it expanding outward. This practice isn't just preparation for death. It immediately dissolves the boundaries between yourself and others, reducing anxiety and creating a tangible sense of spaciousness in your daily life. Many practitioners report that this simple exercise creates immediate relief from stress, while gradually developing the recognition of awareness that's essential for navigating life's transitions. For most souls, however, the journey continues into the Chonyed Bardo, the second stage, where consciousness encounters what the text calls peaceful and wrathful deities. These aren't external gods, but manifestations of your own consciousness, reflections of your deepest nature and karma. Think about this. What parts of yourself have you denied or repressed? What might it be like to face these aspects in vivid, undeniable form? The peaceful deities represent the most enlightened aspects of your consciousness: compassion, wisdom, equanimity. They appear first, offering an opportunity for recognition and liberation. But for many, these radiant manifestations are too intense, too unfamiliar to recognize as aspects of their own mind. When the peaceful deities aren't recognized, the wrathful deities emerge, terrifying manifestations of the same enlightened energies, but in forms that confront resistance and delusion. These aren't punishments, but profound opportunities to recognize aspects of consciousness that have been denied or rejected. Imagine facing your deepest fears, your most intense emotions, not as external threats, but as parts of yourself needing integration. This isn't just metaphorical. The text describes these encounters in vivid detail as experiences more real than anything encountered in life. This teaching offers immediate practical value. Begin to notice when you're projecting your fears or judgments onto others. When you feel strong, negative reactions to someone, pause and ask, what part of myself am I seeing in them that I haven't fully accepted? This simple practice of recognition can transform your relationships and dissolve lifelong patterns of conflict, preparing you for the greater recognitions needed in the Bardos while bringing peace to your daily life. Finally comes the Sidpa Bardo, the stage where consciousness moves toward rebirth, drawn by karmic affinities toward new embodiment. Here, the mind experiences visions related to potential future lives, pulled by desires, aversions, and habitual patterns towards circumstances that match its karmic imprints. This map of posthumous experience has striking parallels with accounts from other traditions. The life review described in many near-death experiences echoes the Bardo Thodol's description of facing one's karma. The tunnel of light reported by those who have briefly crossed death's threshold resembles the luminous experiences the text describes. I want you to consider, could these similarities point to a universal human experience of death? One that transcends cultural conditioning and speaks to something fundamental about consciousness itself? The 31 Days Journey, the Bardo Thodol provides an extraordinary day-by-day mapping of the soul's journey through the first 31 days after death. This detailed chronology reveals the intricate emotional and spiritual processes of transition with a precision that suggests empirical observation rather than mere speculation. The first 7 days bring cosmic disorientation as the newly deceased experiences separation from the physical body. During this phase, consciousness might not recognize that death has occurred, attempting to communicate with loved ones who cannot hear or see them. A description strikingly similar to accounts from those who've had out-of-body experiences. Have you ever had dreams where you tried to speak to someone, but they couldn't hear you? Could this be preparing you for what the first stage after death might feel like? The soul encounters the first brilliant light of pure reality, a light so intense that many turn away from it, missing the opportunity for immediate liberation. This light isn't external, but is described as the fundamental nature of mind itself, temporarily unveiled in its pristine state. As the journey continues, awareness expands beyond physical limitations. The soul experiences visions and encounters that reflect its karmic imprints, confronting both the enlightened and unresolved aspects of its nature. The struggle between attachment to earthly existence and release into the greater journey intensifies. Ask yourself, what attachments would be hardest for you to release? What unresolved emotions might you need to face? Begin practicing gentle detachment while fully engaged in life. When enjoying something pleasant, a delicious meal, a beautiful sunset, time with loved ones, consciously appreciate it while acknowledging its impermanence. This isn't to diminish joy, but to deepen it by removing the anxiety of inevitable loss. Many people report that this practice actually enhances their capacity for joy, while developing the flexibility of mind needed for life's transitions. During the middle phase, the soul enters the plane of memories, where it revisits significant moments and relationships from the life just lived. Unlike the fragmented flashbacks of a dream, this life review unfolds with perfect clarity, accompanied by complete understanding of how one's actions affected others. How might your perspective change if you could see the full impact of every choice you've ever made? Would you judge yourself harshly, or would you find compassion? Understanding this process naturally transforms how you relate to others. When you recognize that your consciousness will one day face everything you've created through your actions, compassion becomes not just a moral ideal, but a practical necessity. Each interaction becomes an opportunity to create patterns of awareness that will serve you in the great transition. The beauty of this approach is that you don't need to wait for results. Living with this awareness immediately dissolves separation, bringing a sense of genuine connection that many describe as the most fulfilling aspect of human experience. In the final phase, emotional detachment and acceptance emerge as the soul prepares for its next stage. Either rebirth or liberation from the cycle of rebirth, depending on the development of consciousness. What makes this mapping so remarkable is how it acknowledges the psychological reality of transition. Just as grief counselors today recognize stages of bereavement, this ancient text recognized that the soul itself undergoes a process, not an instantaneous change, as it releases its connection to physical existence and orients toward what lies beyond. The text describes how karmic seeds planted in life blossom into full experiences during death's journey. Actions committed with intensity create stronger imprints that manifest as more vivid experiences in the bardos. The mind's habitual patterns, its tendencies toward anger, attachment, confusion, pride, or jealousy, become magnified and externalized as encounters with corresponding realms and beings. This process isn't described as punishment, but as natural unfoldment, the ripening of causes and conditions that were set in motion during life. Modern interpretation. How might we understand these teachings in light of contemporary knowledge? The intersection of ancient wisdom with modern understanding reveals fascinating possibilities. Neuroscience has shown us that consciousness doesn't reside in any single part of the brain, but emerges from complex patterns of neural activity. This raises profound questions about the nature of awareness itself. If consciousness is a pattern rather than a substance, could it potentially continue in some form when the physical hardware of the brain no longer functions? Recent neuroscience research on long-term meditators shows measurable changes in brain regions associated with attention, emotional regulation, and self-awareness. One fascinating study from the University of Wisconsin found that experienced meditators displayed significantly different neural responses to pain compared to non-meditators, suggesting that these practices create tangible changes in how we process experience. These findings offer contemporary validation for what Tibetan practitioners have claimed for centuries. The training awareness transforms not just our subjective experience, but our physiological responses to life's challenges. Recent studies in quantum physics have discovered phenomena that challenge our conventional understanding of reality. Non-locality, the ability of particles to instantaneously influence each other regardless of distance, suggests connections beyond physical proximity. The observer effect indicates that consciousness itself may be fundamental to how reality manifests. Do these scientific findings open the possibility that consciousness might exist in dimensions beyond the physical, as the Bardo Todol has claimed for centuries? Psychiatrist Carl Jung was deeply influenced by the Bardo Todol, seeing in its descriptions not literal afterlife realms, but symbolic representations of the psyche's depths. Jung wrote that the text belongs to that class of writings which are not only of interest to specialists in Mahayana Buddhism, but also to the layman seeking to broaden his knowledge of life. For Jung, the bardos represented psychological processes that unfold both at death and during profound transformations in life. The peaceful and wrathful deities weren't supernatural beings, but aspects of the unconscious mind, archetypes that emerge when consciousness undergoes radical transformation. Do you recognize these patterns in your own life transitions? Have you experienced mini-deaths during major life changes where one version of yourself had to die for another to be born? Near-death experience researchers have documented consistent patterns among those who have briefly crossed the threshold of death before being revived. These patterns include moving through darkness toward light, encountering deceased loved ones, experiencing a life review, and feeling a profound sense of peace, elements that align remarkably with the Bardo Todal's descriptions. Dr. Raymond Moody, who pioneered near-death research, noted that these experiences often transform people's attitudes toward death and life, reducing fear and increasing appreciation for living fully. Precisely the intention behind the Bardo Todal's teachings. If you've ever known someone who had a near-death experience, did they speak of similar phenomena? And if so, what might that suggest about the universal nature of consciousness? What if this ancient text isn't just a religious doctrine, but an empirical map based on refined observation of consciousness during its greatest transition? What if its authors were sophisticated psychologists who, through meditation and other consciousness practices, gained insight into dimensions of mind typically hidden from ordinary awareness? Practical application. The most profound aspect of the Bardo Todal may be that it wasn't written only for the dead or dying. It's equally a guide for the living. Its wisdom offers practical guidance for how we might live with greater awareness and die with greater peace. The text emphasizes that how we live directly shapes how we die. Every thought, action, and intention creates karmic patterns that will manifest during the death transition. This isn't presented as punishment or reward, but as natural consequence. Like how daily piano practice shapes what your fingers can do when you sit at the keyboard for recital. When was the last time you contemplated how your daily actions might be shaping your mind for this ultimate transition? Are you practicing awareness that will serve you in that crucial moment? Begin with just 5 minutes each morning to practice recognizing the nature of your own mind. As you wake, before engaging with the day's demands, simply observe your thoughts arising without attachment. This mirrors the skill needed to recognize the clear light in the death transition, but more importantly, it dissolves anxiety and brings immediate clarity to your daily life. Many who practice this report a profound shift in how they experience challenges, seeing them as temporary manifestations rather than overwhelming realities. Meditation practice is emphasized as essential preparation. By becoming familiar with the nature of your own mind during life, learning to recognize its patterns, tendencies, and fundamental nature, you develop the awareness needed to navigate the intense experiences that arise after death. The text suggests specific practices to prepare for death's journey. Phowa, or consciousness transference, is a meditation that trains awareness to recognize the clear light and navigate consciously through the bardos. By practicing the dissolution of ordinary consciousness into pure awareness during life, you rehearse the very process that occurs at death. Tonglen, the practice of giving and taking, cultivates compassion by imagining taking in others' suffering and sending out relief. This expands the heart beyond self-concern, preparing it for the expansive awareness of death, while reducing the attachment and aversion that create turbulence in the bardos. With every breath, imagine taking in the pain and suffering of others, then breathing out love and healing in return. This simple exercise not only transforms your own heart, but also prepares you for the ultimate act of letting go when the time comes. Dream yoga teaches practitioners to recognize dreams as dreams while they're occurring. This develops the same discernment needed to recognize the bardos as projections of mind rather than external realities. A crucial skill for navigating death consciously. Have you ever experienced the states of pure awareness in meditation where you felt completely at peace beyond thought? According to this teaching, cultivating that state is direct preparation for recognizing the clear light at death. Don't feel you need to transform your entire worldview overnight. The beauty of these practices lies in their scalability. Even 5 minutes of mindful awareness daily creates subtle shifts that compound over time. Begin with what feels manageable and authentic. Notice the small changes in how you respond to daily stresses, how you connect with others, how you experience joy. These micro-transformations are the foundation of deeper change. As Tibetan teachers often emphasize, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, and each step is valuable in itself. In Tibetan tradition, spiritual guides or lamas read the Bardo Todol to the dying, orienting the transitioning consciousness toward liberation. But the text suggests that the most important guidance comes from within, from the familiarity with your own awareness cultivated during life. This exploration doesn't need to be a solitary journey. Consider finding others interested in contemplative practices through meditation groups, spiritual centers, or online communities dedicated to mindfulness. Sharing insights and challenges with others walking a similar path can provide motivation, clarify understanding, and create meaningful connections. Many people report that discussing these concepts with others brings them to life in unexpected ways, revealing blind spots and offering new perspectives that wouldn't emerge in isolation. The text also encourages developing compassion and releasing attachment, not as moral imperatives, but as practical preparation for the death transition. Attachments to identity, possessions, relationships, and even to the body itself become sources of suffering when death requires releasing all these connections. What would it be like to practice holding life more lightly, appreciating without clinging? How might it change your experience? Philosophical reflection. The wisdom of the Bardo Todol invites us to reconsider fundamental questions. What is the relationship between consciousness and reality? What aspects of ourselves transcend physical existence? What is the purpose of embodied life within a larger journey? The 20th century philosopher Alan Watts, who studied both Eastern and Western traditions, reflected on the text's significance. When you die, you don't have to give up life. You only have to give up attachment to a particular manifestation of it. This perspective suggests that our deepest fear around death may not be of non-existence, but of transformation, of becoming something beyond our current understanding of self. Does that resonate with you? Is your fear of death really a fear of the unknown, of losing your familiar identity? The Bardo Thodol's vision of existence challenges the materialist paradigm that has dominated Western thought for centuries. It suggests that consciousness is not an epiphenomenon, a byproduct of brain activity, but something more fundamental to the universe. In this view, physical reality is not the primary ground of existence, but one manifestation of a more encompassing consciousness. This perspective aligns with what some quantum theorists call the participatory universe. The idea that consciousness doesn't just passively observe reality, but actively participates in its manifestation. Could the experiences of the Bardos be glimpses into more fundamental levels of this participation, revealed when the filters of physical perception fall away? The text describes reality as having different levels of subtlety, with the physical world being just the grossest, most condensed layer. As consciousness transitions through the Bardos, it encounters increasingly subtle dimensions of existence, not distant heavens or hells, but more fundamental layers of what we already experience. This ancient text also offers a profound reframing of life's purpose. If physical existence is one phase in a larger journey, then perhaps our time in this body isn't about accumulating or achieving in the conventional sense, but about developing qualities of awareness that transcend physical death. Qualities like compassion, wisdom, and the capacity to recognize reality beyond surface appearances. I invite you to consider, how would your priorities change if you viewed this lifetime as one chapter in a much longer story? What would matter most to you then? What emerges from this exploration is a vision of existence where death is not life's opposite but its complement, where living and dying are complementary processes in a continuous journey of consciousness. Just as inhalation and exhalation together make a complete breath, perhaps living and dying together constitute a complete cycle of being. The Tibetan Book of the Dead ultimately points to a reality where the boundaries between self and other, between inner and outer, between life and death, are revealed as constructs of perception rather than absolute truths. When these boundaries dissolve, what remains is not nothing, but everything, consciousness in its boundless, luminous nature. In contemplating these teachings, we're invited not just to acquire knowledge about death, but to transform our relationship with life itself, to live with the awareness that each moment is simultaneously an ending and a beginning, a letting go and a becoming. We've journeyed together through one of humanity's most profound maps of the territory beyond death, a text that offers not just description, but transformation, not just information, but illumination. The Bardo Todol reminds us that death is not something that happens only at the end of life, but a transition we can prepare for through how we live each day. By cultivating awareness, practicing compassion, and loosening our grip on transient aspects of existence, we develop the inner resources to navigate not just the final transition, but all of life's changes with greater grace and wisdom. Before this video ends, I invite you to take one concrete step on this journey right now. Close your eyes for just 30 seconds and feel the sensation of your breath. Not controlling it, just noticing it. This simple act of awareness is the foundation of everything we've explored today. It's available to you in every moment, requiring no special circumstances or abilities. This is how transformation begins, not with dramatic changes, but with moments of genuine presence that accumulate into a life of meaning. Remember, the Bardo Thodol's most profound teaching isn't about preparing for some distant moment of death. It's about recognizing that each moment offers a fresh opportunity to awaken to the luminous awareness that is always present within you. This recognition isn't just the key to navigating death when it comes. It's the doorway to living with unprecedented freedom, compassion, and joy right now. What part of this exploration resonated most deeply with you? Has it shifted how you think about your own mortality or how you want to live from this moment forward? What small step will you take today? Share your thoughts and intentions in the comments below. I read every comment and would love to hear your perspective. Let's create a community of practice around these timeless teachings. If you found value in this journey behind the veil, Please support this channel by liking this video and subscribing for future explorations of wisdom that transcends time and culture. In our next video, we'll explore how ancient alchemical texts offer psychological insights that remain profoundly relevant to modern life. Remember, as the Bardo Total suggests, the most important preparation for dying well is living well, with presence, purpose, and an open heart. May this ancient wisdom serve as a light on your path, illuminating not just what awaits beyond death, but the profound opportunity of each living moment.